Goes back to digging on a rare sunny day.
In Seattle, no rain, thank God. Praise God. It'll be wonderful. It'll just be wonderful. The kids will be able to see things grow and come out and water. And so every Sunday we'll bring the kids out to look at the progress.
Progress is likely inevitable, given the experience of many involved. Sharon Petrie-Williams is chef for the Moving Together in Faith and Health project at Immaculate Conception. A seasoned gardener, Petrie-Williams was already using organic produce from 2 plots in an adjacent neighborhood pea patch. But new beds will allow the church to increase the volume and type of vegetables they grow for their multi-ethnic congregation.
We know that diabetes and high blood pressure runs pretty high in the African American and Filipino community, and so we just decided over a year ago that we were going to start serving healthy food after our masses.
At Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, growing healthy food is a new exercise in faith and health. To say the community is excited is an understatement. Cynthia Parker, health minister lead, admires new raised beds.
And then it's just amazing because the people that have come out, it's just like you can see as soon as we started digging, they're just like, yes, we can do this and we can do that.
Church members are already talking about more beds or planting straight in the ground. There's more south-facing land here than all the other churches combined. Maisha Parker, who teaches at Tabernacle, plans to integrate growing food into the Bible study class she teaches.
Some of these kids actually attend my class, so I'm glad we're kind of doing like a test pilot on them to see will it stick to them. So we're really excited.
With initiative, faith, a little grant money, and a supportive community, the project called Moving Together in Faith and Health is building just gardens, not only for this season, but for those yet to come. Neighborhood farmers markets are being planned, new connections with food co-ops, and even seasonal recipe books. For more on Just Gardens, go to springintobed.org. Green Acre Radio was brought to you with support from the Human Links Foundation. Engineering by C.J. Lazenby. From the studios of Jackstraw Productions and KBCS, this is Martha Baskin.
Along with Folklife, another fun event happening this weekend is Seattle Beer Week. All over the city this week, there are tastings, brewers' nights, microbrewery tours, and events sure to please the dedicated libationist or the casual beer fan. This week on the blog's Toby Scott talks to the creator of a Seattle beer blog about what's happened this week in the world of beer.
The only thing one Seattle man likes more than drinking beer is blogging about it. Seattle Beer News is next on the blogs. Seattle's celebrated craft brewing scene is cataloged by Jeff Kaiser's relatively new blog, Seattle Beer News.
Started Seattle Beer News in early 2009, and the big reason was I was writing for the Seattle PI when they shut down their newspaper and went to online only. I lost some of the exposure that I had there, and I wanted to just open up my own site so I could have a little more freedom and a little more flexibility.
While many blogs rely on newspapers for their content, Seattle Beer News has found a niche as the Seattle Times' unofficial beer bureau.
One of the editors at the Seattle Times is a big beer fan and was kind of an advocate of mine and saw the value of adding some beer content to their online site. They don't do a lot of reporting on the beer scene themselves, and they felt their readers were missing out on some of it, and they wanted to give them an opportunity to find that information, even if it wasn't presented by the newspaper itself.
And what connoisseur's advice does Jeff have for the thirsty KBCS listener? 2 local breweries are highlighting his list. One, a new Puget Sound beer player, the other, an old favorite.
I mean, it is tough to choose sometimes, but one of the biggest names in the local Seattle scene these days is a brewery called Black Raven, which is over in Redmond. They're actually not even a year old, but they've made quite a splash in the market. They've actually just won multiple medals at the World Beer Cup tasting in Chicago a couple weeks ago. Another one would definitely be Elysian Brewery. They've been around about as long as anyone in Seattle, and they have many different styles of beer. You can always find something different, and there's a lot of choices.
We'll link up to Seattle Beer News online at kbcs.fm. For KBCS, this is Toby Scott on the blogs.
On On this week's KBCS Movie Review, Russ Thompson takes on a comedy drama centering on a struggling lawyer whose get-rich-quick scheme hit an unexpected hit. But is this movie a win-win for both director and audience?
Welcome to the KBCS Movie Review. I'm Rustin Thompson. Win-Win sidesteps the pitfalls inherent in its conventional storyline through sheer force of character, performance, and strong writing, which makes the film almost a classical throwback. Paul Giamatti plays a financially stressed small-town lawyer and part-time wrestling coach who bends the law to bring in some extra cash and winds up learning a few hard lessons about faith in his fellow man. In the hands of the wrong actor and the wrong director, the picture could have done just fine at the box office by skimming the maudlin cliches of feel-good filler. But Giamatti, with that lumpy potato of a face, and writer-director Tom McCarthy, with a deft feel for ensemble comedy and the delicately placed expletive, molds Win-Win into a surprisingly full-bodied experience. The film exists in that middle-class world of economic beltway, a few steps lower on society's scale than this year's earlier and very fine The Company Men, but with a similar ear tuned to the realities of the new financial world order, where a job layoff or a malfunctioning boiler can force the American male to reevaluate their place in life, setting aside the unfortunate fact that, as usual, women merely function as the shoulder to cry on in these stories. Both The Company Men and Win-Win are needed correctives to the Hollywood light version of life as we know it, where a man's struggles are usually taken care of by conjuring up a fantasy sequence or outfitting them in a superhero costume. The only costumes on display in Win-Win are high school wrestling uniforms, a getup I've always found to be silly and more than a little embarrassing, but here seemed to fit just fine into the weirdly apt fabric of life McCarthy and his cast occupy. Giamatti's law partner and coaching assistant is played in true second fiddle style by the estimable Jeffrey Tambor, and both are old friends of Bobby Cannavale, recently separated from his wife and needing a distraction. He joins the coaching squad of Giamatti's perennial basement dwellers when the movie's plot device, a teenage runaway, enters the film. The kid, played by newcomer Alex Schaefer, ends up crashing in Giamatti's basement and joining the team, where he proves to be a championship-caliber wrestler. It is at this point, when the movie could have swerved into sports film predictability, that Win-Win instead heads down a prickly but ultimately more winning path of catharsis. With his haphazard blonde dye job and flattened monotone, Schaefer delivers a more honest portrayal of teen angst and vulnerability than the smart-ass, nerdy sad sacks who populate the adolescent landscape of too many movies. He makes choices based on character rather than contrivance and emerges as the sneaky center of the film, forcing Giamatti to face up to his unethical professional behavior and come clean to his wife. As played by Amy Ryan, always so convincing as the drug-addled loser in films like Gone Baby Gone or Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, she teams up with Schaefer to keep her thumb on everyone's moral pulse, and is also the de facto signifier of the film's one major flaw. She's too smart and knowing to not have a career of her own, and her marriage to Giamatti seems to be based on bedrock foundations of sharing and trust. This makes it hard to believe that Giamatti would lie to her about his financial problems, the essential detail that puts the story in motion. Writer-director McCarthy has a fine ear for dialogue and the gentle jousting bred by longtime camaraderie, but his view of women could use a makeover. Win-Win's final scene may put a smile on your face, but I could only think of Ryan back home alone with the kids. The KBCS Movie Review can be heard every Thursday at 7:30 during the Morning Blend and 12:30 during the Outskirts. All reviews are archived at kbcs.fm, and you can find print versions of these reviews at rustonthompson.com.